Kip, what's up, man? So great to see you after a long Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you had a good one. How was it for you?
It was good. You know, it's good when you're ready to get back to the schedule and get things done. So
Totally.
I'm excited to be at work. I'm excited to get rolling. So
Good.
that's
And
how
the
I know it
first
was
thing
a
you
good
have to do
weekend.
is talk with me. So sorry.
It's a great way to start off my week. No, that's,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not to be cheesy, but it is a great way to start off my week. So
No, it's good. We have some good questions come in, and it's good to be thoughtful and think about, just some different things with regards to goal setting and how to improve your life and how to make things better. And, you and I, we see things very similarly, although we see it, I think, from a different angle, which helps me have a more well-rounded perspective. So I'm grateful for that for sure.
totally, totally. And civil discourse and disagreement and evaluating and considering other people's standpoint and point of views is only valuable. And we need, to be frank, we need more of that
I
in
think
society, not
sometimes,
the opposite of it.
I don't know. Let's talk about that for a
Yeah.
second, because I think sometimes you're right.
Yeah.
I think in most situations you're right, especially when it comes to interpersonal communication and dialogue. Like you're dealing with a coworker at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're saying makes sense. I don't know. It seems to me that there is this increasing polarity between political spectrums or even religious viewpoints, spiritual viewpoints, where it's so polar opposite that I'm just at this point, maybe I'm just turning into a grumpy old man. I'm not really willing to compromise
What?
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is my take on it. And so we'll use Thanksgiving. We'll use Thanksgiving since it was last week, and we'll use the example of religion or politics coming up during Thanksgiving with
Because if like,
in-laws and family.
and let me just tell you, if it's me, I'll throw a match in the middle of the thing just to watch it burn. So I want to be aware of that as well. I do need to be careful of that because I don't care. Frankly, things like that, I don't care which side I'm on. I just want to watch the whole thing burn down to the ground.
For entertainment's sake, worst case
Just
scenario.
because I'm so bored. Exactly.
See, for me, this is my stance on it. I have gotten so clear in my head that no one changes their opinion based upon an amazing argument. Most people do not change how they perceive things because I was aggressive or eager or dropped knowledge on them. Most considerations, most evaluations, most paradigm shifts are through agency of choice on their own terms. And
Yeah.
because of ego and pride, most people will never get out of an argument and go, oh my gosh, you know what? Ryan, his aggressiveness in that argument was so profound. I see this differently. No, people will double down and just, and they will double down almost even in a negative point during an argument. So the way I see it is I'm not ever there to make a point or to convince anybody of anything. If I get into a conversation about religion or politics that I even disagree with, I don't even need to communicate that I disagree. I just communicate or just listen, because the human condition is very interesting. And we actually have a question today around, religion, which I'm excited to get into, but it's very interesting how we evaluate things and how we make things mean something. And it's so important that things are right or wrong. And I don't know, I just find it fascinating. So I've gotten to a point of I don't need to prove anything, and nor can I change someone's opinion, but I'm willing to listen and just understand for understand's sake. And then every so often I'll get someone that will go, Kip, what's your take on this? And then I'll share. But until then, I'm not I'm not about arguing my point to anybody. I'm
I,
over that part because it doesn't
I
work.
agree.
So
I agree. And again, I think that comes back to the interpersonal communication. Somebody and me were having a conversation just the other day about gay marriage. And I'm a Christian. I don't believe personally in the concept of being attracted to somebody of the same sex. It's not something I've ever experienced, except for you, Kip. But other than
well,
that, it's
that's
nothing I've ever
understandable.
experienced.
I can change the best of them. Just joking.
All right, this is
Hey,
going downhill
let's
fast.
let's take that off
Let's
of the
edit that
podcast.
out.
Actually, let's edit that out.
No, it's and we were talking about gay marriage. And my thought on the whole thing, the conservative, I'm a conservative, obviously. People who listen to this know that.
Yeah.
So if I had to label myself on one political side of the aisle, I'd say I'm on the conservative side of the aisle. The conservative position is no gay marriage. My position is more maybe of a libertarian position, which is I don't think the government should be telling anybody who should or should not be
Yeah.
married, whether they're
You're
gay or
adults.
straight or
Yeah.
anything in between. So like on things like that, I don't care. I'm not into that. If you are, fine, whatever.
Yep.
You don't understand me. I don't understand you. So what? But then you have other things that do directly impact my life, and we can talk about that maybe on a more national political level. For example, homosexuality and gay marriage doesn't really impact my life. If you want to get married to a dude and you're a dude, fine, or a woman and a woman, fine, whatever. Government, in my mind, doesn't have any right saying that you should or should not or can or cannot, because I don't want them involved even in my future marriage, a straight marriage. I don't want them involved in that, so I don't want them involved in anybody else's.
Yeah.
But there are things when it comes to taxation, for example, or national interest. We see these things with Israel and Hamas. It's like, if I'm Israel, I'm not negotiating. There's no compromise. I will fight to the death. And I actually think that's a virtuous position in that case. So I think we need to discern as men between what is worth fighting for and against and what is not. And having an argument at dinner with your brother's wife who's a liberal about who should and shouldn't get married or transgender, like, yeah, I'm with you. I don't care. Like, I'll throw the match in there just for some entertainment because I'm bored.
A little jab, get things heated up
for
for
sure.
Thanksgiving.
Bare minimum. Like, what can I do? Just make one little snarky comment just to get things rolling, and then just let it go from there and sit back and watch. But then there are other things where I think as men, we need to get involved with. I'm involved in the fight to reclaim and restore masculinity. That's a fight worth having for me. But there's other fights that I think are worthy of pursuing, and they're worthy of no negotiation and no compromise. And I think as men, we ought to do a better job of discerning between the two.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and when we're evaluating that, why are we compromising? And I think there's just value in understanding ourselves and saying, okay, why am I compromising? Is it because I'm generally feel like this, I may or may not be accurate on this stance, or is this about acceptance? Is this about, you know what I mean? Going against my principles or something else. And so we need to be very careful when we're processing some of those thoughts and those battles that we choose to take on.
Yeah.
And make sure that we're taking them on for the right reason as well.
And you've thought about them. I mean, too many people have sat on positions they've never thought about. The gay marriage thing is a perfect example. I've thought about that. And I've had conversations. And I even know guys are listening to this like, well, that does impact you. And the Bible tells us not to. It's like, yeah, okay. Sure. I can get behind that.
But the Bible also says freedom and agency is a really critical aspect of life. How do you deal with that then?
Well, and how do you reconcile the two? Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't directly impact my life. And people say, well, no, it does, because then, your children will learn about it. Okay. Well, yeah, they will. So it's my job as a father to guide them in what I think is virtuous living. Not to expose them unnecessarily or improperly or inappropriately to things they should not be exposed to. You'll hear people say that, like, oh, well, they're going to see about it at some point, so you might as well expose them. I mean, take that logic to its fullest. Well, they're going to talk about sex at some point, so let's go ahead and expose them to pornography. Oh, well, they're going to be exposed to drugs at some point, so why don't you be the first one to get them high? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah,
you need to do it as a father appropriately. And people will say, well, that's indoctrinating. Right. The difference is I have the authority to indoctrinate my children. You don't, Kip.
Yeah, absolutely. On our terms.
Yep. Exactly.
Yep, totally. So let's kick off with some questions from the Iron Council. You open up this app with kind of, goal setting and what we do in the Iron Council. Eric Manassi, he actually had this question. He said, what is the biggest reason do you believe that men leave the Iron Council? I'm going to expand that question is, what do you think the biggest reason men get on a path, whether it's the Iron Council or some other program, whether it's their fitness or mental, and then fell off? Because I think that the bigger broad of this question will serve more people. I think it's probably the same answer, but let's start off with that question.
Yeah, I'm glad that you expanded it. They abandoned their ambitions or their desires or the program that is going to get them on the path. And they do that for two reasons. Number one, they do it because it takes work. They're just not used to it. Yeah. And a lot of the times when it comes to something like the Iron Council, other programs that are out there, a lot of the times it's just marketed really cleverly. And it's you're made to believe that if you just sign up and you pay X amount of dollars,
we're
then
good to go.
All of your wildest dreams are going to come true.
Totally. That's fair.
And people,
I mean, we don't sit here and go, yeah, we don't go over the list of all the reasons why you probably will fail when you join the Iron Council.
No.
Right? We're like, hey, join us, get on the path, make a difference. Hey, guess what? It still requires you to do the work.
Yeah.
Right. And we don't shy away from that, but in the same breath, right? We focus on the positive, like, you got this, join us, you know?
Yeah. It's like going to the gym. You know, you think you watch a movie or you see somebody you're inspired by, or you get motivated by a woman or, you know, whatever it might be. And you think, okay, I'm going to go to the gym, and you go to the gym and, you know, the first few minutes feel pretty good. And the next 10 minutes feel not quite as good. And the next 10 minutes are a little worse. And by the time you're 40, 50 minutes into this thing, you're like, this sucks. Yeah, it does suck. It definitely, if you're doing it right, it sucks. You know, you should still be having some fun with it and enjoying it and seeing how it links to your progress and growth, but it's not comfortable, especially if you've never been doing it. How do you take a guy off the couch for the last decade who's used to eating, you know, bags and bags of Cheetos and playing Xbox all day, to now he's going to go out and do a workout at the gym every day for an hour? How do you go to that?
That's a big shift. Yeah.
It's a big shift. So I think it just becomes hard for people. And then I think the other reason people abandon it, I guess there maybe two. So I'm going to add a third one in here, is two things. They either don't see the results as quickly as they expected, so a false expectation.
Yeah.
Or they do experience the results, but they don't properly attribute it to the actions they took. So those are the three answers. Number one, it's too hard and they abandon it. Number two is they don't experience the results they would have liked to have seen as quickly as they could have seen. So a sense of false expectations, which is on them. They need to hire people, be around people who will give them a real set of expectations. And number three is it works, but they misattribute their success to their own efforts or something else, and begin to believe they don't need the system anymore. And so they fall off the wagon, and then naturally and inevitably the results start to deteriorate. And then they come back and realize it wasn't me, it was the system.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing I'd add. I just feel most guys, when I think about most guys in the IC, I think the most reason guys join is for accountability. They want accountability. And this is unique to the IC, I think, probably more so than maybe other things. But I don't think we evaluate accountability or how uncomfortable accountability is. And so it's like, oh man, I want accountability. I want a system to help support me up. Oh wait, that system holds me accountable and people will call me out if I'm out of integrity. Geez, that's not fun, right? Yeah. And then that's not very enjoyable. And so I think that's probably unique to us, where it's like, oh man, that maybe how's this? We shed light on what is so. And if guys aren't on that path, then you get exposed. That's what accountability does. And that's uncomfortable. That's uncomfortable for a lot of guys. And I think they struggle with that.
You need that exposure though, if you want to improve. Like if you want to lose weight, what's the first step? You got to jump on the scale.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally have to strip off your clothes and jump on the scale and look at what that number is.
Yeah. Face it.
Yeah. If you
Yeah.
want to improve your financial situation, you have to open up your bank account and type in that password, that user ID and that password, and pull it up and realize, oh shit, this isn't good. Or compile a list of your creditors and actually write down the number. Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to be exposed. So I'm excited to say this. I'm excited to say that the data does not actually suggest that the number one reason men join the Iron Council is for accountability.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You got analytics before. I
I've
was
got
kind of shooting
analytics
from
on
the
my
hip
side
here.
now.
What
Yeah.
what is the number one reason, sir?
Brotherhood. Brotherhood. And maybe that, maybe there's some semantical games there for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that men, we've heard this term, at least I have, this crisis of loneliness among men. And I think, at least anecdotally, and by the data that we've compiled, is accurate. Men are looking to band with other men. And certainly accountability plays a part. But I think just being around other men, learning from, I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday about how men are mocked for not knowing certain things. And then when a man actually steps up and says, hey, I don't know how to do that, he's mocked for asking about how to do it. It's like, well, a man can't win. You don't know, and you've got a problem. You ask for help, and you've got a problem. So what does a man do? Well, you need an environment that fosters a level of growth. We don't say safe space in the Iron Council. Ryan Gant came up with a term, and I like this: secure space. Right? Safe means that there's no threat. But in the Iron Council, there is a threat that you will be exposed, that you will be uncomfortable, but it's an environment in which you can do it and know that the men around you, even though you are vulnerable, and I'm using that word in the proper context, that you are vulnerable, you are exposed, you're in an environment where it's secure, and we're going to help you put the armor on and do what needs to be done.
We're not going to take advantage of it or use it against you. No, we're going to use it to help you.
Exploit it. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Where does accountability sit on that list? Is it even at the top?
I don't actually, it is. It might be number 2. I'd have to look, but it's very close. And brotherhood might, again, there might be some semantical wording there, but just, I wanted to impress you more than anything that I was looking at the data.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Well, and Reese would be impressed.
He would be impressed. He would be impressed.
All right. Next question. Christopher Hutchinson, how do you enact like our lives have no limits or like today is our last? How would you incorporate for long-term goals? So life has no limits or act like today is your last.
I'm real pragmatic, and people will say life has no limits and your mind is limitless. That's not true. It is. So, I mean, I understand the sentiment, but but my brain is a little bit more logical in that approach. And let's be honest, there are limits, and there's a lot of them are self-imposed.
You can't really do anything you want. Yeah.
Yeah. If I wanted to go, I'm looking out this mountain over here, and I'm like, I think I want to fly like a bird today. And I climbed up that mile mountain and I jumped off the cliff. I'm not gonna fly. Like, it's not some like limit of my mind that's not working. Like, I am going to fall and die. But I get the sentiment, and I think that's what he's saying. So life is limitless. And what was the other?
And live like today is your last.
That one resonates with me a little bit more fully.
Yeah, me too.
I talked to, who was it? Jim Quick, actually, I think talked about this. I think it was Jim. He talked about an element of his book, which ironically is called Limitless. And he came up with an expanded edition. And he said something to the effect of making your life a masterpiece, I believe. I believe it was Jim. Was it Jim or was it somebody else? I can't remember. But I don't know, that the way that he said it really stuck with me, that each day is a masterpiece. This podcast that we're doing right here, Kip, should be a masterpiece.
Yeah.
It should be thoughtful. It should be deliberate. It should be intentional. The audio quality should be where it needs to be. The video quality should be where it needs to be. Our banter back and forth, the way that we communicate should be where it needs to be. The way that we deliver it, the conversations we're having, the questions we're asking, the questions we're responding to, it should be a masterpiece. If I create a new hat, like we got new hats in the store, it should be a masterpiece. It should be amazing. If you're gonna go on a daddy-daughter date, that date should be a masterpiece. Meaning that you plan something, you dress nice, like you take a shower and you put a little cologne on and you trim up the beard and you look nice and you go to the local, car washing place and you get the car washed and you detail it and you pick her up, and or maybe she's there with you, and you open the doors for her and you plan, you get reservations and you plan, maybe she's into a play or maybe she's into sports. I don't know, whatever she's into, but it should be masterful. Like everything, you get up in the morning and you make your bed, you should tuck your corners of your bed sheets. Like you don't just like throw it on there and like, oh, here's me. No, it should be masterful. I don't know why that struck a chord so much with me over the past couple of weeks, but I've really been trying to do that. I'm working on a few little projects. I won't disclose just because my sons might be listening, but a few little projects for Christmas. It should be masterful. I think I should pay attention to the details and I should pour time and attention and money into it. And it's a silly little thing. It really is. But I want it to be masterful. Yeah. I want them to see it for the first time and like be blown away. But that only comes if to the question, if we know that, hey, this could be the very last thing I do today. This podcast right here, these could be the last words that I share. These words could actually be the last words that my children ever hear out of my voice because they're not with me. So let's say I wrap this up and I go run an errand and I die. This could be the last audio they have of me.
Yeah. And did you take advantage of it? Was it masterful and beautiful?
Right. And when they come, let's take that same scenario. Let's play that to the nth degree. I die, I get into a car accident and I die. My kids are going to come into my house. And what does my house look like?
Yeah.
Is it like beer cans and, bullshit all over the place and it's thrashed and it's gross? Or do they come in
Cheetos and salsa Cheetos, all over?
Yeah. Ice cream melting on the floor, and or do they come in and they're like, yep, this looks like dad's house. Clean, pictures of where they need to be. Stuff's that's bed's made, floor is vacuumed. In fact, maybe the floor is being vacuumed because it's on a timer as it is with the little robo vac I have. And like they come in, they're like, yeah, this tracks. That's what it should be. Look at your car. I can't tell you how many times I go into somebody's car and they're like, hold on. Let me clean out the front seat.
Let me clean up all this stuff. Yeah.
You'd really? Like that should be clean already. It should be masterful. Yeah. It's not my job to judge. I'm just saying, if you want to live a masterful life, then it would already be clean. You wouldn't need to clean it for me. You'd be doing it for yourself.
What I like about this, Ryan, is I'm even thinking of like something mundane at that, work wise. If I have to write up some documentation for a client or whatever, I've really gotten to a point where I love that document. I know it sounds silly, but that 20-page document explaining things, I'm just like, ooh, making it look good and just good diagrams and just, I love it almost. There's a sense of fulfillment I get from that the other employee that just does the bare minimum doesn't get.
Right.
Like there's a different life that I'm experiencing when I choose it to be masterful versus if I just do it to get by. So this isn't just about impressing, Ryan's not saying, oh, just do all these things to impress people. No, man, this is like fulfillment and meaning. And yeah, maybe that's just it. Fulfillment and meaning in whatever it is that we're doing. And gosh, what a great way to live.
Yeah.
If we really think about it.
One thing I think about is just being in the dating pool, as a single father being in the dating pool. And I wish that I would have been a lot more deliberate about the way I dated my wife, my ex-wife.
Yeah.
And I would have done that completely different. But what do you do? I don't know how many married men do this, but I know when a man is single and he wants to take out a woman he's intrigued or fascinated with, he goes, like I said, and he gets the car detailed and he makes the reservation and he puts on his best clothes and he grooms himself and he runs down to the barber and he gets his hair cut and he does all the things, right?
Yeah.
Masterful. Why? Because you want to put your best foot forward. When you're married, especially as you are married for longer and longer periods of time, that becomes less relevant. It shouldn't, and it
Yeah.
did for me, and I wish it wouldn't have, and maybe I'd be in a different position, but I wasn't doing that. Guys, always put your best foot forward. And I like what you said, not to impress a woman or your boss or a client, but to impress yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you put your best foot forward and you impress yourself, then all of that other stuff will come into line. Women will come into line. Your boss will come into line. Your clients will come into line because they'll see, like, they're not doing it for me. They're doing it because this is a person who values themselves. And because they value themselves, I can see that there's someone worth valuing.
Totally. Yeah, I can't help but just evaluate, right? We take these two questions we've answered so far, dealing in reality and then being masterful, and look at the different roles that we have in life. What's the reality of my marriage? What's the reality of my relationship with my boys? Is it masterful? Is it amazing? And if it's not, man, the importance of stepping into that. Who was the author that did that book with David Goggins, where he had Goggins live with him? You're kind of a
Oh
crazy
yeah,
guy.
Jesse Itzler. Yeah, Jesse's been on the podcast
Itzler.
too.
So I love something, and I follow him on the gram, and he said something, and this is probably weeks ago, but I really, really loved it. And he said something about goal setting. He says, every year I do a physical thing that just pushes my limits.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do an epic adventure.
Yeah.
And then there's like something else. And I love that idea of like, man, okay. And I know, we can time box it, but it's like, okay, well, what was so amazing about 2023? What breakthrough did I have from a physical perspective? What epic thing did I do that just made that year stand out to me? And if the answer to that is nothing, then back to what you're saying, I don't think that year was a masterful year.
Right.
Right. And so I that is powerful. And I've even shared that with my wife. It's like, man, what's the thing? What's the epic thing for this coming year that we plan and make sure that we happen? So we look back and go, yeah, 2024 was that year that we did that thing, that very difficult thing, or that amazing adventure that we never would have considered.
Yeah. One thing that you said, Kip, is you were talking about your relationship with your boys. I do want to just throw one caveat in there if I can, and that is don't make your masterpiece contingent upon the way people perceive it. So with a relationship with your sons, for example, there may be strain in the relationship for one reason or the other that's well beyond your reach. But what you can do is show up fully as a father. If we're talking about dating, not every date's going to be amazing. Not every woman you go out with is somebody you're going to want to marry, but you better show up the way that she could potentially be the one, right? And then you put it all on the table, and then you just let it ride from there. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, no harm, no foul. You put it all on the line. Yeah. So we do have to detach in a way, and I guess there's even a caveat to that, but we do have to detach our actions from the result. And the caveat to that is that you do want to make sure that your actions are eventually going to lead to appropriate results. I would hope that goes without saying. But once you know that you've done your best and you've put your best foot forward and you've done everything that you can possibly do, then at that point, that's the win. And that's where we should take pride.
Yeah, absolutely. Good distinction. Connor Daly, in a world of constant conflicting opinions on religion, a creator, and our origins as a species, I often feel conflicted with my own religious beliefs. I was raised Christian, but as I grew up, my questioning everything started to confuse me and make me wonder about what is true. That being said, how can we as men be confident that we are right about what we believe in? I don't want to live my life to find out I was serving the wrong thing and end up in a bad situation in the next step of the journey.
There's two approaches I would take. Number one, is it good? You said he said, who was it again that asked this question?
Connor Daly.
Connor said, I want to make sure I'm not serving the wrong thing. All religions, not all, but the overwhelming majority of religions have redeeming qualities. And the idea is virtuous living. We can agree on that, right? For the most part.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're not serving the wrong thing by doing the right thing. And what is the right thing? You already know. Go out there, do your best, serve other people, love on people, care about others, work hard, avoid temptations. We all know. And it doesn't matter if it's Catholicism or Christianity or Buddhism or baptism or Mormonism, or it doesn't matter to me anyways. And I know a lot of people say, well, no, this is the only path. I don't really believe that. I don't actually believe that one day I'll die and I believe I'll meet my creator. And I don't actually believe that he's going to say, well, you didn't do this one thing in this one way through this one religion, so you're out. I don't see it being like that. I see a screen being played and him reviewing my life and saying, did you try to do good? Did you try to serve other people? Did you take what I gave you and try to make it better? Did you use it for your own benefit in righteous ways and the benefit of other people? Or did you screw around and did you mess with people and did you make life harder than it needed to be on yourself and others? And we're going to watch and we're going to see. And I get to watch that movie, or I have to, depending on what that movie looks like. So I don't think knowledge is there to confuse you. I think it's there to expand your horizons and expand your beliefs. And I don't think that just because you happen to read something outside of the Bible that it's not spiritual or it's not godly. You'll even hear religious people who say that. Well, everything's in the Bible. No, everything's not in the Bible. Like people say, I have a video it's like 7 books every man should read. And I deliberately did not include the Bible because I think the Bible should just be included in there. If you want to read the Bible, read the Bible. And people will say in comments, this is the only book you should read. I disagree. I completely disagree. I think there's some incredible lessons. My Bible's sitting there right on my nightstand. There's some incredible lessons. I can't say I crack it open every single day. I like to, but every 2 to 3 days I crack it open and I read a passage or a scripture or a story. And there's some great lessons in there. But I got 3 other books that I'm reading that are pretty valuable too. And those aren't ungodly just because they aren't in the Bible. Read and expose yourself to cultures and beliefs and ideas. And instead of worrying about how this one conflicts with this one, here's a good example: Christianity and Stoicism. I hear all the time, oh, you should never study Stoicism because it conflicts with Christianity. No, it doesn't.
Absolutely
not
doesn't.
at all. It complements it. But if you're looking for ways that it conflicts, or you think that just because one dogma is the only way to live your life, that you can't expose yourself to something else, then you're going to have this internal conflict, which is the right book to read. Millions and millions of things that we can learn, an infinite number of things we can learn. But I have to learn that one thing, because if I don't, then I'll be at odds with my creator. I don't actually believe that at all. Yeah. I think we all have gifts to add to the world. We all have insight. As I get older, I think I'm more empathetic and understanding of what's going on because I've been through my own bullshit, that I can see other people's bullshit a little bit more clearly than I could when I was 20 and had life figured out. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So my answer to you is stop looking for things to be conflicting and start looking for patterns and ways that they actually are congruent and work together and things are harmonious rather than contentious. And if you want to get biblical, you can talk about contention being of the devil. I won't get into that necessarily, but if you're looking for a way to live a more Christian life, I'm assuming you're a Christian, then the idea is harmony and congruency. And there's harmony between the two books right on top are my Bible and Limitless. There's harmony between those two books. If I'm looking for them to conflict, they will. If I'm looking for harmony between the two, I'll find that.
Totally. I had a great conversation with my son a few months ago when we're driving to go work on the house, and he's loving Stoicism. And he says to me, he says, Dad, you know, it's really interesting as I study Stoicism more and more, I can't help but think that Christ is almost like the perfect Stoic.
Mm.
And for me, it was like, yes. And what I told him was, Ian, I go, you want the gospel? Here's the gospel. It's truth. Wherever you find it. That is the gospel of my creator, is truth. And you can find truth in many things, right? Even think about the Bible. Okay, a bunch of writings from numerous individuals put together into a single book. Who dictated whether it was put into that book or not? Catholicism. Well, I'm not Catholic, so but yet the basis of whose writings got into the Bible and who didn't is based upon a religion I'm not part of, but yet it's the foundation of mine.
Good point.
Be very careful, right? Be very careful. And I think this is rooted in the idea that we need to look at religion as a conduit for our own personal religious spirituality. The minute that it's right or wrong, it means that you have outsourced your spirituality to that thing. And that should never be the case, in my opinion. It is your religion. It is your connection to your creator. It is what you believe, and it's your spirituality. Now, pick different conduits that will help you get there, right? Different books, maybe different religious books. But if your identity is so tied to, let's say, a religious group and or a book, then you have lost the higher level of spirituality, in my opinion. That is like, I don't know, I'm struggling with an explanation here, but you're riding on the coattails of it for your spirituality. You need to have some self-actualization and move beyond it. And I think when we do that, we find truth in many things. And we realize that what is quote unquote right is also based upon where we are right now, based upon our ability to accept whatever it is that we can accept in the moment. And it's going to be different. I mean, I'm sure that you and I can both look at our past and say, where my spiritual beliefs were 5 years ago, 10, 15 are so drastically different. And it's not because major shifts, it's because I'm different. I'm capable of understanding things that I never would have understood before. There's elements of love and forgiveness that I have never been able to comprehend until now in my life. And it comes with experience and time. And so I would say to Connor, try not to get wrapped up even in what is right and what is wrong, but realize that you're on a path of exploration and growth. And what you know today is not going to be the same of what you know 5 years from now. And that's a good thing, because you're not ready to receive an enlightened version of knowledge until you're ready. And it's about the path of growth and continuous improvement.
You also have to be careful, because people will try to keep you where they are because it represents a threat to them. So you do have to be aware of that. And I hear that all the time. Well, Ryan, you said this 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago. I said something that contradicts what I said today 5 minutes ago. Like, you're way behind the boat if you're comparing what I said 5 years ago. There's a great quote by Heraclides. He says, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it is not the same river, and he is not the same man." So we're different. Experiences are different. Cultures are different. I'm a simple guy, so I like simple analogies. Imagine the game of football. We all like the game of football. Let's say we're in the NFL. Kip, the goal of football is the same regardless of what team we're on. And let's say I play for the Raiders and you play for the Packers. If I'm in the Raiders program, Well, I mean, I'm close to Vegas now, so you
Out
know,
of all the teams you could have given me,
I'm close to it. No, I'm on there. You're on the Packers. What team? What team do you want to be, Kip? You tell me, okay? What team do you
well,
want to be?
I want to be on the Cardinals, but they suck this year. But I'll take the Cardinals because I'm a fan.
Cardinals. All right, Cardinals.
Yeah.
Okay, Cardinals. All right,
Tough
whatever.
season.
Yeah, of all the teams you could have picked, okay. So we're both
Some
playing.
loyalty.
We're both in the NFL. I'm on the Raiders. You're on the Cardinals. We both have the same objective to win in a certain way. There's rules.
Yeah.
The way that the rules are the same. So much so that we agree on the rules. Like, here are the rules, and we're going to have a third party entity, referees, come in and enforce these rules for us. So we agree on that. But the way that our team plays versus the way that your team plays, it's going to be different. And if I get transferred to the Cardinals, I don't get to go to the Cardinals and say, "Hey, look, I do it the Raiders way." They're like, "Well, man, you can leave because you're going to do it the Cardinals way." And so the point that I'm making here is that the rules are universal. Do good, be good. There's obviously there's some room for discussion, I think, on some of those things, but for the most part, we know. And what team you play for is really just based on your preference and how you think is the best way to achieve the objective. And I think the best teams are versatile. The best teams can adapt. You even hear great quarterbacks. I remember watching Peyton Manning and calling audibles on the play because he saw something in the moment that needed to be adjusted for. And that's life. There needs to be adjustments. There needs to be pivots. The goal is the same. Return to our creator. The way we do it is got to adjust based on our own personal life and the circumstances we find ourselves in, whether they're self-inflicted or otherwise.
Yeah. And I like that. That's a great analogy. And playing for the Cardinals, their system might work better for me. And how do I know that? Because I flourish in that environment. I've seen the benefits. My yards go up and I'm succeeding on that team. And I may not as much on the Raiders.
Right.
And so how do I gauge that? Due to the results and the fruits that it's giving me.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. There you go.
All right,
what's in football. All right. Robert Larson, how to overcome limiting beliefs and imposter syndrome with starting a new business, or how do I shift your mindset to focus on building your part-time business to become a full-time one day?
Well, look, here's what I would say. And I know it sounds a little harsh. Why are you already thinking about all the ways it can fail?
Before even starting.
I don't know. I've never really thought that. Maybe that's just a personality, but I've never, I thought about, like, what if this doesn't go well? Oh, what if it goes right?
Yeah.
So I look at a new business, and the first thing has for me anyways, has never been, oh man, I don't know. Oh, oof. The first thought for me is maybe, like, oh, this could be cool. Yeah. What if I did this? Oh, wait, whoa, what about this? Oh, here's an idea. Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, let's try that. And maybe that's a personality thing. I don't know. But I would challenge you as to why are you getting pessimistic so quickly about it? Limiting beliefs? There's no limiting belief.
Get some reps going first, maybe.
Like, let's go. Let's go. You should be excited. You're starting a new business. What are you seeing other businesses do? Where are other businesses lacking? What skill do you bring to the marketplace that isn't already there? How are you better at something than somebody else? Let's go. Come on. Enough of that. Like, I don't have time for limiting beliefs because I'm too focused on what ifs, possibilities. What could be if I do this, if I do that, if I try this, if I invest there. And then if it doesn't work out, maybe this is part of the belief. If it doesn't work out for me, then I pivot. But I don't know until I try it. So I'll try it and I'll be like, yep, that didn't work. I tend to be a pretty intuitive person as well. So I might take something and somebody might share an idea, for example, and I'll think to myself, no, I don't want to do that. And that's all I need.
Yeah.
Or I might hear something or see something or come up with an idea and I'm like, that sounds good. And that's all I need to get going. And then you figure it out along the way. Be willing to experiment, be willing to look a little foolish, because you will from time to time, and knock it off. Just stop doing that. Start thinking about the possibilities.
You know this. I went to the muster with Echelon Front.
Yeah, down in Dallas, right?
Yeah. And one thing that I got from that And I thought it was great because I don't know, you know how it is. It's probably something I've heard like 100 times, but just didn't connect until this time. And what it was is this idea that be careful that we don't wrap our egos around the plan. That we put this plan in place, and then it's just like this perfect plan. And we'll even start going down a path we shouldn't be go because it's the perfect plan. And he's like, that's your ego. And you got to be willing to like adjust. And one thing that really resonated was everything is a guess anyway. We're just guessing all the time.
Yes.
And we need to like let go of this perfect plan. And I do see that a little bit in Robert's question. And Robert, I'm this way, right? When I think of something, I'm like, okay, here's my business strategy. Here's what I'm going to do. And I paint this elaborate picture in my mind of how it's going to go. That's part of the problem because I'm so set on controlling how it's going to go that I really realize that, hey, I just need to get some reps. And guess what? Back to kind of what you're saying, it may not work. And when it doesn't, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to adjust and it's going to be okay. And you don't know what you don't know until you don't know, right? Until you know it, right? And you just need to take some steps and probably let go a little bit in regards to the bigger picture and dictating how it's going to go, because we're all just kind of guessing and validating and testing. And we need to be able to be agile in that moment. So then that way we're not locked into something anyway. And so that's, I don't know, hopefully that helps a little bit. And one thing that I've always done too, when I was working at Intel and Micron and I got a severance package. So I had this cushion to act, right? I thought, oh man, I got 6 months of full-time pay. Now's the time, right? If I'm going to try my own business, I got 6 months to give this a run. And it's funny how this works, but it's just a psychological game. And my game was what? I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work, what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go get a job. That's it. So I'm going to try this. And if it doesn't work, I have confidence enough that I can go get a job somewhere.
Of course.
12 years later, I didn't have to go get a job yet. Right. And I kept going because I didn't have to go get a job. But that play in my head was enough for me to take the risk and get past my limiting beliefs, because worst case, I could just go get a job and it wouldn't be that big of a deal.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll all work out because it has to. What's the alternative?
Yeah. You'll figure it out.
Yeah,
absolutely.
As you were talking, I got thinking about, I work really well in analogies. I see things differently in analogies. And I got thinking about, I'm not a big track and field guy, but for whatever reason, I got thinking about hurdles and the event of hurdles. And, you know, when an athlete who is going to run this race is thinking about the distance, I don't know much about hurdling, so somebody can correct me, and you guys will, of course, you always do. So I appreciate that. But when an athlete is thinking about the distance that goes along with hurdles and thinking about the height of the hurdles and the placement of the hurdles, they don't sit there with their coach and like, how could we move that hurdle somewhere else?
When should I kick? Yeah.
Well, that's totally what they actually do think about that. But they're not thinking about like, how do I get rid of the hurt? They're not saying like, I don't like that one. Let's get that one off the field. Move that one. Like those hurdles are there. Like they're not going anywhere. They're at a set pace, a set distance, a set height. And now it's your job to figure out, how do I best clear that hurdle? Because it's not moving. I can't move it. I can't put it somewhere else. I can't get rid of it. It's there. So you work with a coach, and a coach says, okay, well, here's the speed at which you come out of the blocks. Here's when you start to get into your movement. Here's the technique. Here's how you get the most height, but not too much height, because that'll probably slow you down. So we just want to barely clear the hurdle so that we can keep our momentum going forward. So a coach is there to work you through the hurdles that will inevitably come up. But nobody ever in hurdling says, I'd like there to be less. There should be fewer. Let's get rid of a few hurdles.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think that's the mentality here, is just be aware that there are hurdles. They're not going anywhere. They're not going to change. They're going to be there. Somebody's already done it. So maybe hire a coach who can work you through the best way to overcome some of these things. That's how you take it to the next level. That was the second part of his question.
Yeah. And you're not there's value in the failure. That's the other thing. We need to get past this. You know, Andrew Huberman at he had a podcast, I don't know, probably about a month ago. He talked about when you have a growth mindset, when you couple it with the idea that stress is enhancing, you have way more success, way more success. And we need to stop looking at stress or challenges as something bad, right? It's a good thing. That's where all the growth is. So it's like limiting the beliefs. What if my business doesn't fail? Awesome. When it fails, guess all the wonderful things you're going to learn. So start failing and start learning and figure it out, right? Like it may not work, but there's still major value in the process.
I'm actually really grateful that my first podcast failed.
Yeah. Imagine you still talking about finances, how boring this would be.
It would be horrible. None of you would be listening. I'd be miserable. And I would have abandoned it anyways a long time ago, but it failed. It didn't work. It wasn't a failure in that nobody listened. It was just something I didn't really enjoy. But along the way, I learned, oh, I like the medium of podcasting. So let's just pivot. And because that failed in the traditional sense of the word, I was able to move forward into something that hasn't yet. And hopefully it won't, so it's okay. It's all right. Just let go a little bit.
Totally.
Let go a little bit.
Tyler Bottomley, how to push through on the days where you just don't feel like putting in the work.
Just lower your expectations
for that day.
For the day. I'm okay with that. I used to say, just push through, just drive through, and some days you do. Like if there's an important meeting, you have to, right? But let's say you get up and you're not feeling the gym or you slept through your alarm. You could just throw in the towel completely, or you can say, I'm not going to make it to the gym today, but I can go for a walk during lunch. I could do that. Okay, do that. That's okay. I'll allow it. Like just lower the expectation for the day. The part where it becomes a problem is when it starts to trend. And that's when you have a problem. But if it's a one-off and you're not feeling it for the day, I know if you're like me, a lot of guys who are hard chargers have a hard time letting go. They have a hard time slowing down. We started the podcast by saying that. You think about Thanksgiving. It's like, okay,
glad I'm back to work.
Enough of vacation. This is ridiculous. I'm there with you. I get that. I'm the same way. And so it's hard for us to take a break and take a step back. And so a lot of times we'll burn out. And in that case, what I would say is don't do it all. Just do something and make it masterful. Do it the best that you can. I'm not saying change the standard. Please don't misunderstand. I did not say change the standard.
Or give up. Yeah.
Right. The standard should still be held to the highest, but change the expectation a little bit for the day, get a few wins. That's another thing that you can do is if you're like loss after loss after loss, stack a few wins, small things that you can just stack up and build up some momentum again. Because I think about it with baseball, you see these guys, these athletes who are the best of the best. And sometimes they have hitting slumps. Just the way it goes. Sometimes all you need is to get walked and get on base and steal second. You're like, okay, a little bit of confidence, right? And maybe that's what you need when things aren't going your way. Maybe you botched a presentation or didn't land the big client or the woman, didn't want to continue the relationship with you. Those are all losses. Okay, well, go on another date. Go get another client, make another call, talk to an existing client, see if you can serve them better in some way. Try to stack some wins, and I could think you can build the momentum up from there.
Yeah, I like that. Mike Skurlock, I got myself into construction industry not too long ago after the military. I'm selling roofs and I do well, but the idea of me making a penny when the boss makes a dollar drives me up the wall. I want to start my own business and be my own boss like anyone else, and I have my sales directly affect my workload and profits where I can manage it all. More freedom, basically. What was the most important first step starting your business, and how did you manage the stress of supporting a family while taking a leap into the entrepreneurial lifestyle?
So in my situation, just to briefly give you an overview, I was able to sell a financial advisory practice. So I had a lump sum of money. It sounds like you had a lump sum of money, at least to some degree, with your severance package. So that worked out pretty well because it gave us a buffer and a cushion. I realize that doesn't work out for everyone. So if you know that you're planning an exit strategy, whether it's in the next month or the next year or the next 5 years, then just start working backwards and asking yourself, what do I need to do in this time so that when a year comes up or 5 years comes up, it won't be so much of an issue, the financial strain that will come with you leaving. That might be paying off debt. That might be learning to live a little bit more within your means. That might mean saving a bunch of money so it's set aside so you're ready to make that leap. It might mean learning how to be a good social media marketer or develop and build relationships outside of what you have going on with your current relationships that will help transition the business better when you do make that transition. I do want to throw the caveat in here that I think that it's very important that we maintain integrity. I think as a contractor currently, it might be easy for you to try to sandbag relationships and try to build relationships so that you can poach those relationships later. And I'm not saying that's totally wrong, but the way that you go about doing it, and if you undercut your boss, it's just not a righteous, virtuous thing to me. But you should be building those relationships. And when the time comes, there might be an appropriate time where you could reach out to a business relationship that you built in another context. I would just say be careful with that because I think the way we do things matters. At least that's my perspective of it. Your boss is paying you right now. He's training you right now. That's one
you
thing
might
I
partner with.
Yeah.
You might be partnering with him in the future. Who knows? You don't know. So be careful. Yeah.
So I was with an organization, a company, and I was doing insurance and investments and I realized it's time for me to probably start thinking about starting my own advisory firm. And I spent about 6 months, 8 months, if I remember correctly, really thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to build this? I started doing some paperwork. I started building some websites. I built up my social media following, not necessarily with the financial stuff, but I started the podcast around that time. Like there was a lot of things that I was doing that was gearing me up for that transition. And the way that I viewed it was free training. In fact, better than that, somebody's paying me to learn all of this stuff. So I learned about business. I learned about accounting. I learned about bookkeeping. I learned about marketing. I learned about all of this on somebody else's dime. And I wasn't taking advantage of that person. I was still fulfilling my agreements that I had with that individual and that company.
You're a better resource because of it. Yeah.
Right. But I was so grateful to that company, even though I knew I was leaving, because they paid me for training. They trained me how to have a business. They paid me to do that. Like that's pretty incredible. So if you look at it like that and you're more grateful for the opportunity that somebody's paying you to learn the ins and outs, maybe there's sides of the business that you can learn today that you don't know about. Maybe all you know is installation, or maybe all you know is sales, but you don't know the back end bookkeeping. Maybe you don't know marketing. Maybe you do know sales, but you don't know installation, or maybe vice versa. What things can you learn in the business now so that when you make that transition, it makes it that much more seamless for you?
Yeah. He specifically asked, how do you manage the stress of supporting a family while taking the leap?
Communication. That's it.
Yeah.
Your wife believes in you, man. Kids believe in you. Like they have no reason not to. They believe in you. You're their hero. You're your wife's hero. You're your kid's hero. So let them know what you're doing. Include them in the process. You can even let them know you're scared. We had a conversation on Friday in the Iron Council. Connor Beaton from Man Talks and the author of Men's Work joined us. You can let them know you're scared. You can let them know that you have concerns, but what he suggested, and I agree, is that you have a plan, or at least you're working towards one. Hey, hun, look, I'm thinking about doing this next year, 2024, the end of this year, end of next year, I'd like to have my own business. And I'm scared because there's the financial risk that comes with it. There's the risk of looking foolish. There's the risk of not being able to provide for you and the kids. I'm actually really scared about it. But here's some things that I'm currently doing to make sure that when we make this leap, it's not going to be as scary and I have a higher likelihood of success. How do you feel about it? Man, just open your mouth and communicate with the woman that you love, with the kids who think you're their hero, and those things will work themselves out. Communication.
Totally. The other thing, Mike, is deal in reality as much as you can in regards to what it's going to take and what the cost is going to be. That way we know what we're getting into. We talked about this earlier. People lose momentum, right? Because they're like, oh man, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and have a flexible lifestyle and freedom of time. Well, maybe not for the first 3 years. Maybe you're going to work a lot more than you work now. And it's going to be highly stressful and you're not going to have any time.
Yeah.
Because the business is taking up all your time. And just get clear on that so you understand what you're getting into and you understand the costs and you don't get sideways when you realize that you don't have any time, because there is an associated cost to it. So deal in reality. And it's not for everybody. Yeah. I can't count how many nights, man. Like I'd be like, my wife says it this way. She's like, we're like uber rich, we're poor. We're uber rich, we're poor, right? And it's just this roller coaster. And I can't count how many times business would be going great. And we'd sit there in bed and she'd be like, oh, how's that project going? I'm like, oh, we're wrapping up. We're going to be done, in a couple of weeks. And she's like, oh, what's after that? And I'm like, you can't ask that at 10 p.m. at night. Then I wouldn't sleep all night because I'm like, oh my gosh, we're broke in 2 weeks, Yeah. And then I'm stressing out again. It's just, oh my goodness.
That's the nature of men and women though, right? So it's important to be aware of that.
Totally.
The answer to her is, regardless of where you're at, stop spending money.
Yeah, totally. That's funny. The other thing I was, I forgot what else I was gonna say. Anything else there for Mike?
No, I don't think so. I distracted you. Sorry. Let's take one more, Kip.
Oh yeah. All right. Jason Davis, he actually threw out 4 questions for you. So you get to pick and choose. Choose your own adventure with Jason Davis.
All right, Jason. I appreciate, a little greedy, but I appreciate the ambition.
Turning hobbies into side hustles. Option 1. Option number 2, best practices for structuring a business.
Okay.
Option 3, how to motivate and encourage your kids. Or option number 4, where to learn hunting for your kids.
I don't like any of those. Let's take
question.
Let's take option 3. Remind me what it is again. I like that one.
How to motivate and encourage your kids.
Okay, I like that one. Let's take that one. Motivate them the way they would want to be motivated, not the way you would want to be motivated. That's it. That's the answer. I think every man deals with that. I deal with it. I'm like, why won't my kid do this thing? Because he doesn't like it. I remember I asked my second son, I said, do you want to go on a hunt with us? Can't remember which hunt it was. And he said, no, I don't really want to do that. And I was so disappointed. And I'm like, you don't? All shocked. Like, you don't? Why? And he's like, well, Dad, I don't like being cold. I don't like being tired. And I don't like being bored. I'm like, yeah, those are legitimate reasons. Yeah, those are legitimate reasons. And so the kid doesn't like to hunt. So what? So what? He'll go. He's gone on a couple hunts. He'll go sometimes if it sounds interesting or whatever. But like, so what?
And so what to him? So what changes?
Right. And it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. So what I would do is I would look at my kids and I would really try to understand what my kids are motivated by. Christmas is coming up. Maybe they want to buy something for somebody else and they need a little money. Okay. Well, now I know how to motivate you. I can motivate my kids. I know when my kids are motivated, you know how? They'll come to me and they'll say, hey, Dad, how many orders do you have? I'm like, why? Why do you care? They're like, we want to help you fulfill orders so we can earn a little money. Good. We can do that. No problem. Why do you want money? Oh, I want to buy, this girl a present. Cool. There's my motivation. It doesn't need to be my motivation. It needs to be their motivation. Yeah. Now, the alternative to that is a kid who's not motivated at all. That's not true either. Because a lot of guys will be like, oh, my kid, all he wants to do is play video games. Well, he's motivated to play video games, isn't he?
Motivated to play those. Yeah.
So why don't we go to the video game conference that's in Las Vegas this weekend and go check it out and see what it's all about? Oh, well, why would I encourage that? Because maybe he's going to develop video games and become the next, billionaire, then make the next greatest video game. And you're so worried about what he should or shouldn't be doing and not worrying about what he's into that you can't help foster a healthy environment or path for him to pursue. My second, who I was talking about hunting, he loves sneakers. He loves tennis shoes. I don't care about shoes. That's not a thing for me. But if he likes them, I found there's a sneaker con in LA. We're going next year. I don't care about that personally. What I care about is that he's into it. Is he going to make shoes at some point? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't make shoes. Maybe he becomes a clothing designer. Maybe he becomes an engineer because I fostered a love for color schemes and how things are put together. I don't know where it's going to go, but I know he's motivated about it. And I know it's my job as a father to create opportunities that he's motivated by, as long as they're healthy and in constructive and healthy ways. Let's stop doing it in the way we think our kids need to do it through us, or living vicariously through our children. And as long, again, as it's healthy, because there is a caveat to this, and I see it all the time, where a kid will say, you know, I'm a furry, I'm a cat, and a parent will say, oh yeah, you're a cat. Let's put a litter box in the classroom at the public school. Okay, that is not what I'm talking about here. There's some guidance and there's some structure about what is healthy and sane and rational versus something that they're inspired by. My oldest, when he was younger, he wanted to be a cowboy animal doctor. All right, let's do it. So I called a couple of offices in town, the veterinarians in town, and I said, hey, my son's really interested in becoming at some point maybe a veterinarian. And can we come in and watch what you're doing? He's like, yeah. One guy in particular is like, yeah, come in. So we went in and we watched a cat get its tooth extracted, which was hilarious because they had to give it a pill first. So watching force feed a cat a pill and then extracting a tooth. And then we watched, I think, another one get spayed or neutered. And then he had a chameleon. And so he was watching the chameleon, and there was a few other things. And like, we had a great time. If I asked my son, do you want to be a veterinarian today? The answer would be no. But that wasn't the point. The point was that was what he was motivated by. So I found a healthy outlet for him to explore that option. And we found out that it just wasn't his thing. All right, let's find something else.
Totally. I like it. The one thing I'd add, and we have this in our leadership development program. We have a pillar around motivation and inspiring. And one of the first things that we have in there is, are you inspired? Are you a motivated person? Do you show up in a way where your kids go, man, dad inspires and motivates me because of how he shows up in the world? And not to put it back on you, Jason, but like, we got to be careful of that, right? That we're showing up in a great way, that our kids are inspired by us. And if they're not, and we're dredging along, we're not going to be in a very good position to be able to like, hey, Timmy, get after it, son, when we're not getting after it and we're not living a masterful life.
Yeah.
And taking pride in how we're showing up in the world. We're really not in a position to help create that for other people if we're not doing it for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Cool.
Good questions today. Was that all Iron Council related, or did we get into some Facebook stuff there too?
Oops. We hopped over into Facebook at one point. So to join us there, go to facebook.com/group/order-of-man.
Yeah. Cool.
All right. Iron Council, December 15th. Yep. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it. Join us December 15th.
Join us.
Yeah. We'd love to see you there. Again, number one and maybe number two reason that guys join. Number one is brotherhood. Maybe number two is accountability. Maybe number three. I don't know, but it's up there on the list. So if you're looking for men to bandwidth and you're looking for some accountability along the way, and you're willing to do it masterfully, you're willing to be exposed in some way, that's the place to do it. And you're going to grow if you do the work. So we'd love to see you there. orderofman.com/Iron Council.
And of course, you can get your Order of Man swag at store.orderofman.com. You'll want to get into orders fairly soon, right? For Christmas delivery.
Yeah, we're pretty quick, of course, but hustle on those because we want to make sure we get them to you on time.
Excellent. And then connect with Mr. Mickler on Instagram and X at Ryan Mickler.
That's right. Cool, guys. Thanks for the great questions. Hopefully we gave you some good answers or some things to chew on and consider. We will be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.